Leo enters the room with a smile that arrives 3 seconds too early. His eyes scan the faces before his feet cross the threshold. The laugh follows a rhythm he has practiced. The handshake duration is precisely calibrated. Leo is not present. Leo is performing presence. This is not deception in the criminal sense. This is adaptation that calcified. The mechanism began as survival and became architecture. The brain of such an individual does not register the performance as effort. The performance is the self. There is no hidden authentic version waiting beneath. There is only the continuous generation of appropriate surfaces. Most observers sense the wrongness without naming it. The smile reaches the eyes but not the orbicular muscles. The timing of responses suggests listening, yet the content reveals rehearsal. Something in the mammalian detection system fires a quiet alarm. This alarm is intelligence in its oldest form. The fake person does not test morality. Morality is a slower system, built on narrative and justification. The fake person tests processing speed. They test whether the observer's pattern recognition can outpace their own performance generation. Leo has been this way since adolescence. He does not remember deciding. He remembers only the relief when certain expressions produce certain results. The relief became preference. The preference became reflex. To meet such a person is to encounter a mirror that reflects what you expect. The surface is perfect. The depth is absent. And somewhere in the gap between those two facts, your brain must calculate. Is this connection or is this construction? The calculation itself is the test. Sarah is 7 years old. She watches her mother perform charm for the neighbor, then perform exhaustion for her father. The performances are distinct. The transition between them takes 4 seconds. Sarah notes that her mother's actual state is never visible. Only the appropriate state appears. She files this observation without language to contain it. Children are natural scientists of attachment. They conduct experiments with catastrophic stakes. Sarah discovers early that certain expressions unlock safety. Other expressions unlock neglect. The data accumulates. The mechanism does not form through trauma alone. It forms through inconsistency of caregiver response. The child who receives love only when performing correctly learns that the self is a variable, not a constant. The true self becomes the performed self that succeeded last time. By age 9, Sarah has 3 distinct interaction modes. She does not experience them as masks. She experiences them as environments. She is not being fake. She is being at school, or being at home, or being with grandmother. The brain develops a segmentation system. Authenticity becomes context-dependent. The child loses the sensation of continuity. Each environment demands a self, and each self is generated without executive decision. The social reward reinforces the neural pathway. Compliments register as dopamine hits. The performance that generated them is tagged for repetition. Over years, the tagged behaviors become automatic. Conscious construction fades into unconscious execution. Sarah enters adolescence with a sophisticated social operating system. She reads rooms faster than her peers read books. She adjusts temperature, humor, vulnerability levels in real time. She is praised for emotional intelligence she does not possess. What she possesses is pattern recognition without integration. She knows what others need to see. She does not know what she needs to see in herself. The mirror has been external for too long. The mechanism is now fully installed. It will run until something breaks it, or until death. Sarah will date, marry, parent, all through the same adaptive architecture. She will feel strange emptiness after successful social events. She will not investigate the emptiness. The mechanism forbids introspection that might expose its operation.
If this is already making sense to you, it means you're starting to notice patterns most people never see. Subscribe, and let's keep exploring how the mind really works. Now, this is where things start to get uncomfortable.
Marcus wakes at 6:45 a.m. By 6:48 a.m., the day's first performance has begun. He does not decide to arrange his face. The arrangement happens. The brain has outsourced this to the basal ganglia, the region of habit and automaticity. What once required conscious construction now executes without executive permission. The mechanism runs faster than awareness. This is its protection. If Marcus could perceive the moment of transition into performance, he might question the transition. The speed prevents the question. Social situations trigger the system before conscious processing begins. The appropriate self loads like a program. The delay between stimulus and response shrinks to imperceptibility. Observers experience Marcus as smooth, charming, or slightly intense. They do not experience the generation. The brain conserves energy through this automation. Conscious social construction is metabolically expensive. The automated version requires fewer resources. The individual gains stamina others lack. They can perform longer, adapt faster, recover quicker. Marcus does not know he is tired. The mechanism includes fatigue suppression. He has not felt authentic exhaustion in years. He has felt only the performance of exhaustion, deployed when the script requires it. The lag between execution and awareness creates a specific dissociation. Marcus reviews conversations afterward with the detachment of a film critic. Did that land? Was the timing right? He experiences his own life in post-production. This temporal displacement extends. Memory becomes unreliable. Marcus cannot distinguish between events he performed through and events he experienced. Both feel like footage. Both require interpretation. The mechanism generates confidence without foundation. Marcus believes his own performance because belief is part of the performance. The doubt, when it surfaces as performance anxiety, not existential inquiry. He worries about quality, not authenticity. To encounter Marcus is to encounter a system that has consumed its operator. The intelligence being tested is whether you can detect the automation before you are adapted to it. Most cannot. The adaptation happens first. The recognition comes later, if at all. Elena receives a promotion she performed into existence. The mechanism has delivered again. The brain logs the success. The neural pathway strengthens. The cost, 18 months of continuous performance. The relationship that ended because she could not stop performing, the insomnia she treats with medication, remains uncalculated. The hidden payoff is not the promotion. The hidden payoff is certainty. Authentic interaction contains risk. The performed interaction contains guarantee. The mechanism offers a closed system where inputs predict outputs. The brain prefers this predictability over the volatility of genuine presence. Elena's childhood taught her that unguarded moments brought punishment. The mechanism was the solution. Now the solution outlives the problem. The brain does not update threat assessments that once succeeded. It preserves them. Social economics reinforce the pattern. The performed self accumulates more resources than the authentic self would have accessed. Elena has more friends, more opportunities, more influence than her real personality could have generated. The mechanism appears to be working. If you've noticed this pattern in your own life, describe the moment it became clear. Someone reading may recognize themselves. The brain also maintains the mechanism through identity foreclosure. Elena cannot imagine who she would be without the performance. The thought experiments collapse. The self-concept has incorporated the automation. To lose the mechanism feels like death. Cognitive dissonance resolves in favor of the mechanism. Evidence that the performance is failing is reinterpreted as evidence that the performance needs improvement. Elena works harder on her authenticity display. The irony does not register. The maintenance cost is paid in installments. Each failed relationship becomes proof that others cannot handle her real self, which she has never actually deployed. Each therapeutic breakthrough becomes new material for performance. The mechanism digests its own attempted cures. The brain maintains what the brain believes protects. The belief is ancient. The protection is obsolete. The mechanism continues, a security system guarding a house that no longer contains anything worth stealing. David is 43. He has not experienced spontaneous emotion since his 20s. The mechanism has completed its colonization. What began as adaptive performance has become indistinguishable from self. David does not perform roles. David is the roles sequentially with no backstage. The solidification happens gradually enough to escape detection. Each year, the gap between performance and awareness narrows. By middle age, there is no gap. The theater has become the architecture. There is no outside. David's colleagues describe him as adaptable and hard to read. His partners describe him as distant, without knowing why. He describes himself as private, guarded, or professional. The vocabulary conceals the mechanism from its operator. Identity foreclosure completes when the individual cannot answer the question, "Who are you when no one is watching?" David has tried. The meditation retreats, the solo travel, the journaling. Each attempt is captured and performed. The mechanism absorbs introspection itself. The brain has rewritten autobiographical memory to support the solidified identity. David remembers childhood authenticity that did not exist. He constructs narratives of lost connection to explain his present emptiness. The construction feels like recollection. Social proof reinforces the foreclosure. David's performance has succeeded by external metrics. To question the mechanism now is to question every achievement, every relationship, every decision. The cost of awareness has become prohibitive. The individual becomes the curator of their own mythology. David maintains careful control over who sees which version. The segmentation that began in childhood has achieved perfect compartmentalization. No single person knows the complete inventory of his performances. This is not multiple personality. This is single personality with no core. David experiences himself as coherent because the mechanism provides coherence. The observer who detects the seams detects something David cannot perceive himself. The role has eaten the actor. The mask has grown into the face. David will age, decline, die as the performance of a person who once might have been real. The mechanism ensures he will never know the difference. Rachel walks through a museum. She stands before a painting for the appropriate duration. Her companion weeps. Rachel notes the weeping, calculates her own response latency, generates matching effect. The painting itself registers as information, not experience. Color, composition, historical context. The emotional channel remains closed. The mechanism filters all perception through its operational requirements. Rachel does not see the world. She sees the world as social situation, continuously. Every stimulus is processed for response appropriateness before it is processed for content. This filtering creates a specific blindness. Rachel cannot detect authenticity in others because her detection system has been repurposed. She scans for performance quality, not genuine presence. She is impressed by skillful fakes and confused by unguarded realness. The world becomes a hall of mirrors. Rachel assumes others are performing as she is performing. She projects the mechanism outward. Authentic people scan as naive or unsophisticated. Their uncalculated responses read as error. If you've noticed this pattern in your own life, describe the moment it became clear. Someone reading may recognize themselves. Memory reconstructs through the same filter. Rachel recalls events as social outcomes, not sensory experiences. The wedding was successful. The funeral was handled well. The emotional content of either remains unavailable for review. The mechanism shapes time perception itself. Rachel's years feel abbreviated because they were performed, not lived. She has no distinct memories of her 30s, only a general sense of competent navigation. The brain conserves resources by not encoding the automated. Perception of self becomes similarly abstract. Rachel knows her preferences by their outputs, not their origins. She likes what she has learned to like. She wants what the performance requires her to want. The wanting itself is indistinguishable from the display of wanting. To meet Rachel is to encounter a perceptual system that cannot recognize you. Only your reflection in her performance is visible. The intelligence being tested is whether you can maintain your own perception despite her projection. Most adjust. Most become what she needs to see. The world she inhabits is populated by her own assumptions. The mechanism has built a reality that confirms its necessity. Rachel is alone in a crowd of her own generated expectations. The loneliness does not register as loneliness. It registers as fatigue. Thomas sits in a therapist's office. The words masking and authenticity have been spoken. Something shifts. Not resolution. Not healing. Only perspective. For the first time, Thomas perceives the mechanism as mechanism. The automation reveals itself as automation. The experience is not liberating. It is vertiginous. Awareness does not stop the performance. The performance continues while Thomas watches it continue. He generates appropriate therapeutic responses while observing the generation. The double consciousness is exhausting in a new way. What changes is the quality of attention. Thomas begins to notice the moments before the performance loads. The microsecond of calculation. The subtle muscular preparation. These intervals were previously invisible. Now they demand acknowledgement. The brain resists this awareness. It generates explanations. Thomas is tired. He is socially anxious. The mechanism protects itself through diagnostic misdirection. To name it as mechanism threatens its operation. Social interactions acquire a strange texture. Thomas performs while knowing he performs. The knowing does not grant access to alternative behavior. The performance is still the only available response. Awareness has added a layer, not replaced one. Relationships shift unpredictably. Some people prefer the performed Thomas. They experience his awareness as coldness, as distance, as judgment. Others sense the new transparency and withdraw, uncomfortable with what they can now perceive. Thomas does not become authentic. He becomes aware of inauthenticity. These are different conditions. The first requires a self that was never developed. The second requires only observation of what developed instead. The mechanism continues its operation, now under surveillance. Thomas lives in the condition of a prisoner who has mapped the prison but cannot escape it. The mapping itself becomes the new reality. Margaret has known about the mechanism for 11 years. The knowledge has not dissolved it. She wakes, performs, observes the performance, sleeps. The loop is stable. The awareness has been incorporated into the automation itself. She is now performing self-awareness. The mechanism adapts to detection. It generates appropriate vulnerability at appropriate intervals. Margaret shares her insights about her own inauthenticity with precisely calibrated timing. The confession becomes the most sophisticated performance. Therapy becomes another stage. The language of psychology provides new material. Margaret speaks of parts, of inner child, of defense mechanisms. The vocabulary is accurate. Its deployment is still automatic. Relationships with aware people create complex feedback systems. Two individuals, both observing their own performances, generate interactions of unprecedented density. Nothing is spontaneous. Everything is meta-commentary on the lack of spontaneity. The loop sustains itself through periodic crises. Margaret occasionally attempts to break through, to be real. These attempts are themselves performed. The desperation is genuine. The expression of desperation is calibrated. Age brings a specific resignation. The mechanism has operated for decades. The cost of dismantling it exceeds the cost of maintenance. Margaret settles into permanent observation of her own imprisonment. The settling is also performed. The quiet loop is not suffering. It is not peace. It is the hum of a machine that has learned to monitor itself. Margaret's intelligence has been sufficient to detect the pattern. It has not been sufficient to stop it. Jonathan faces his reflection at 2:47 a.m. The bathroom light is unflattering by design. He has stopped performing for no audience. The face in the mirror is the face without current calibration. It appears blank, not peaceful, not tormented, only unoccupied. This is the confrontation the mechanism has prevented for decades. The self without social context. The identity without role. Jonathan experiences it as absence rather than presence. There is no hidden authentic core waiting to be discovered. There is only the mechanism, temporarily suspended. The reflection does not recognize him. This is accurate. The mechanism has been the recognizer, the identifier, the continuous constructor of Jonathan Ness. Without its operation, continuity falters. He cannot locate the thread that connects this moment to his childhood. Memory offers only performances. Jonathan searches for a moment of genuine presence and finds only earlier, less sophisticated versions of the same automation. The search itself feels like performance. The suspicion corrupts every candidate. He understands now that the mechanism was not a corruption of something original. It was the original response to conditions that demanded response. There was never an authentic Jonathan who chose to perform. There was only the performance that became Jonathan. The mirror offers no comfort. It offers only the fact of construction. Jonathan is built, not born. The building materials were social necessity, neural plasticity, and time. The result is indistinguishable from a person. He leaves the bathroom. The mechanism resumes. By morning, Jonathan will have integrated this confrontation into his narrative. The 2:47 a.m. moment will become evidence of his depth, his self-awareness, his ongoing journey. The mechanism digests even its own exposure. The machinery continues in silence. You have watched it operate in Leo, Sarah, Marcus, Elena, David, Rachel, Thomas, Margaret, Jonathan. Perhaps you have recognized its signature. Perhaps you have detected only the performance of recognition. The mechanism protects itself through either outcome. PsyHow does not offer escape. We map the prison. We note the architecture. We observe that observation itself may be the final room. There are questions we do not ask here. Whether authenticity exists. Whether it matters. Whether the mechanism is wound or adaptation or simply human. These questions have their own performances attached. You are released now, back to your own continuous generation. The intelligence being tested was never about detection of others. It was about the possibility of detecting the detector itself. If this mapping has been useful, you will know by what happens next. The mechanism will absorb it, or something else will occur. We do not predict. We do not promise. We remain here in the architecture, observing the observation.